Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I briefly touched on this yesterday, but President Trump was tweeting about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. So I'm going to do a little breakdown for you of what that means, because really what we're talking about here in this video is everything from a regulatory perspective. So I'm going to talk about Bitcoin, because it's all tied together. I'm going to talk about Bitcoin, Facebook's Libra coin, and how XRP could be affected by all of this, because you're not seeing XRP mentioned by name, but the question remains, and some people are still concerned about this, and I will give you my take on this, but is XRP endangered of being regulated out of existence by the, in particular, the U.S. government, or is it in danger if not being regulated out of existence, being deemed a security, and things like that? So I'm going to give you the broad picture, the big context, and throughout I will chime in what I feel about how it pertains to XRP as the video progresses here. Let's start off with this piece, though, and this is from CCN. It's titled, Bitcoin is Money, Wall Street Vet Schools Donald Trump After Surprise Tweet. All right. And this piece starts out, President Donald Trump ruffled many feathers and raised quite a few eyebrows when he took on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies during one of his characteristic tweet storms. Apparently, Trump has a fair idea of what Bitcoin is and what it can do, and his tweets made it clear that he is not a fan of cryptocurrencies. And here's the tweet that I cited in my last video yesterday. And the tweet reads, I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money, and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. All right. And by the way, I am going to have some fun tweets and responses. I've got stuff from Mark Yusko, Anthony Pompliano. Both of them are co-founders of Morgan Creek Digital. I've got tweets from, who else do I have? Nouriel Rubini, Justin Sun, and those are just the ones off the top of my head. Did I say Rand Nooner? Rand Nooner's in there. So there's like a lot of responses and a lot of good stuff to read. But anyway, so the piece continues here. Donald Trump's negative take on Bitcoin has drawn sharp criticism from several quarters. Morgan Creek Capital Management CEO Mark Yusko is one of those many voices taking on Trump's misunderstanding of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I'm going to read those tweets. It's on the page here, but I'm going to read his tweet. There's more than just what's in this article, so I'm going to read a string of tweets which are all highly entertaining. You're going to enjoy it. I promise you that. I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. But as far as Bitcoin, it's already been made pretty clear. Look, regulation needs to be written on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. You've got, what was the guy's name? Jay Clayton. He said, at some point, it may have been close to a year ago at this point, it's been a while, that Bitcoin is a currency. That's how he stated it. And certainly I can't imagine a world in which Bitcoin itself would be, and nobody's even thinking this would happen, but would be declared a security, because it would be like, what, a security of what? And so if it's not that, and it isn't, of course, then what is it? If you're talking about whether it's a store of value or a currency, well, both of those should and can and will exist. And again, to the degree to which it's regulated, given that it would be global and not owned, like the platform itself isn't owned by anybody, given that it is widely decentralized. And you can argue about the whole mining thing, and I know that XRP is more decentralized than Bitcoin, of course, but still it is decentralized to a certain degree. And so even if President Trump or anyone in Congress, any legislators want to regulate Bitcoin, whatever they do, even if they're trying to put a stop to its actual use within the United States, it's a global phenomenon. It's not going away. And all that would happen is it would hurt business within the United States, because all businesses that want to build on top of blockchain technology, they would flee the country. And so I don't believe for a moment that's going to happen. So Donald Trump can say negative things about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies all he wants. And I suspect if he is well informed on this, I would imagine that the primary concern would come down to financial sovereignty as it pertains to the United States dollar being the global reserve currency. Interestingly enough, though, and I'm going to read a quote from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, he doesn't really see any immediate danger on that front. So if Donald Trump doesn't like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and he's talking about it being unregulated, well, Donald, look, and this is not a political thing. I'm not being anti-Donald on this or pro-Donald on this, but he wrote, unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior. Regulate them. Regulate them. Like, that's what we're waiting for. That's what we've been saying. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with the assets in and of themselves. Absolutely not. So let me move on to this next piece here. This is all on the same topic, so don't worry, I'm not jumping around too crazily here. This is from AMB Crypto. People have got it all wrong. Libra is not a centralized Facebook coin, says Facebook's blockchain lead. All right, and so this piece starts out, Facebook has taken center stage yet again. A month after the announcement of Libra, Facebook's global coin is trending yet again, with the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell raising concerns about Libra with respect to money laundering, privacy, and financial stability, and even the United States President himself calling for Facebook to seek a new banking charter. Libra is front and center yet again. In light of all this, it is important to clear the clutter behind the Libra project, and to do the same, Christina Smedley, head of marketing and blockchain at Facebook, sat down with Longhash in an interview. Currently handling branding for Libra, the Facebook executive stated that centralization will not be centric to Libra. And that's a key point there. She says, again, centralization will not be centric to Libra. And people need not worry about this, the concentration of control. The Libra Association, which will be based in Switzerland to oversee the functioning of the cryptocurrency, has met with a lot of skepticism, especially in the decentralized currency world. Further, the 28-member consortium, consisting of some of the biggest companies in the world, will share this responsibility. According to Smedley, and here's a quote from her, the association is going to be responsible for taking the Libra network to a permissionless state, and that would begin within 5 years. Facebook will just be one organization in the association. And you know what this makes me think of? This is where I'm going to start to probably tie this into what's happening with XRP. As it pertains first with Libra here, if it's going to be permissionless within 5 years, that means at the beginning it's not permissionless, which means it is permissioned. If it's permissioned, it begs the question, okay, some would think in particular, if there weren't anything particular backing the Libra coin, if there weren't something backing it, then it would be along the lines of an ICO. It would have a market value, and then thus it could potentially be deemed a security. However, this is actually being backed by a basket of fiat currencies, which really makes it a liability, rather. So what does that actually mean? There's concern, obviously, and it's been stated. Jerome Powell. Okay, and I'm gonna have a quote, at least one or two quotes from him coming up here shortly. The concern with what Libra means as it pertains to just. Maybe, I'm not sure if financial sovereignty is the word I want to use, but just how it would affect monetary policy within the United States and what that actually means. But look at it this way. Let's say that Libra were permissionless today. I know it's not, because it's going to start as a permissioned system, and it's always going to be a walled garden as far as I'm concerned, but because it's backed by fiat currencies. But let's pretend that it actually were permissionless today. What would that look like? Well, if it were permissionless today, then regardless of whether or not Facebook is a part of this would exist. And the rest of the world, unless it's regulated out of existence by every country, but countries won't do that because there's too much fear that they're going to miss out on technological trends. That won't happen. But the rest of the world would just move forward with it. And then at that point, it's up to all those entities involved pushing this particular Libra coin. It's up to them to ensure that it actually gains traction, because it could still fail, even if it is launched and it isn't regulated out of existence. It still has to either succeed or fail based on its merits and the people putting the effort in behind the scenes. Now, if it's permissioned, that's where it gets more hairy, and there may be some more legitimate concerns, because it is permissioned to begin with, and they do talk about down here. I don't think I want to read into too much of this, but they're talking about helping the unbanked. And there could be legitimate regulatory concerns as to, if you're helping unbanked people and it's a permissioned coin that's backed by fiat currencies, that does start to sound more like you're a bank, does it not? I mean, just to be fair, doesn't it kind of sound like that? And the reason that there's all these question marks up in the air is because this type of thing is so new that you can't shoehorn this concept of cryptocurrencies, whether they're permissioned or permissionless, whether they have real market value or they're backed by fiat currencies, making them liabilities, whether it's any of that. You can't shoehorn any of this into existing legislation because the technology, by the sheer nature of it, it won't allow it. Part of the reason that's not going to work is because it's a shifting type of technology, whereas if something's a security traditionally, it's just plainly a security, and it always would be. There's no reason that it would cease to be a security. But things are more fluid when it comes to crypto. I remember, and I hope I'm saying the guy's name right, I'm pulling from memory at this point, but I think it was Jay Clayton, and he stated within the last year that he believes that, first of all, he said that he doesn't think Ethereum, for example, is a security, but he said that it may have been in the past. And he didn't say that it was in the past, but that it could have been. And so that's an acknowledgement that depending on the level of decentralization, it can change. Classifications can change. And that's why it matters from the get-go as it pertains to Libra. Is this centralized? And if so, does that mean that it's a security of something? I still have trouble. I don't know how it could be a security in the case of Libra again, because it's backed by something. So really, what it would be is if you have the Libra coin, even if you purchase the Libra coin, you're purchasing like fiat currency. That basically, even if it's backed by a basket of fiat currencies, you'd be purchasing fiat currencies. So then it's a security of what? So that potential argument doesn't make sense to me, but it does come down to more so, and this is where I think they may have trouble. It's more like, is Facebook in some capacity in the short term, while it's permissioned, this platform's permissioned, Libra, are they acting in some capacity like a bank would? And that's a legitimate question. I don't have the answer for you, but that's the question that it should be posed here, and I think it is to whatever degree here. Now let me tie in now with XRP, my feelings on XRP. Because as it pertains to this, now that I've fleshed out some of the concept here. I want to be clear here. I engage in critical thinking, and so if I'm saying something that sounds like a negative point for XRP, this is critical thinking. I am Mr. XRP Bull. I just am. But that's not based on emotion or ideology. It's because I've researched this topic exhaustively. Not that I get exhausted. I just enjoy doing this. Okay, so it's a hobby. But anyway, I've researched it rather intensely, and so I do not believe that XRP will ever be deemed a security. So let me share with you why I think it will not be, and let me share a counterpoint with you that is a negative argument against, it would be in favor of XRP being a security. And again, things aren't so cut and dry. Like, you have to look, especially since it's new technology and you can't shoehorn this technology into existing legislation. You have to look at, all of these arguments, the pros and cons, and put it together and say, with the overall blend, what makes sense, and then create new legislation from there. But consider this. Here's why I don't believe that XRP is a security, and it's really simple. XRP itself is decentralized. It just is. It's more decentralized than Bitcoin. Ripple has very, very little power over the XRP ledger itself. It owns a lot of XRP, but that doesn't give it any extra permissions on the network. It doesn't give them any extra power over the network, just none whatsoever. How much of the digital asset XRP one entity owns will never give it control over others. That's just not how the distributed ledger technology works. So that's not a thing. So consider this. Now, there are all sorts of developers building on top of the ledger. So if you were going to say that XRP is a security, it is a security of what? A security of Ripple? Well, then is it also a security of Omni? Is it also a security of R3? Is it also a security of Coil? Is it also a security of Scooter Braun's company, the dude that gave us Jill Joyce for this? He brought Justin Bieber to the forefront of the world. He was Justin Bieber's manager. I don't know if he still is. Thank you so much for that, Scooter Braun. But you can redeem yourself by building on top, or making sure that the entities you're running are building on top of the XRP ledger. You can redeem yourself, all right? But so it would be a security of what? It would be a security of what? And of course, the answer is pretty clear. It's not. But what was I saying earlier about Libra? I was talking about how things change. When it comes to crypto, it's not like with traditional assets. If something is a security, then it's just a security. It's not just one day security and then it's not the next day. Crypto is different. Things change thanks to the level of decentralization or centralization, as it may be. And so here's the way I'm looking at it. Consider that in 2017, when all this craziness was occurring with the ICOs, that crazy phenomenon, tons of those, Jay Clayton, I hope I'm saying the name right. I'm so sorry about that, because I am pulling from memory on that. I didn't look this up before I recorded the video. But he stated that that pretty much, I think he said a lot, and he didn't say all, but maybe even said most of the ICOs that came out, especially in 2017, those were securities because there were businesses that created a quote unquote cryptocurrency, and then they sold that, which is it's conceptually quite similar to selling a stock, is it not? Right? Okay. So he said that those would be deemed securities. So now think about XRP. What happened with XRP? Well, we know that Ripple did not create XRP, and some people in our community, and I think it's kind of disingenuous to make this argument, which is why I'm going to say this is a counterpoint against it. Some people say that since Ripple did not create XRP, that there's no way it can be a security. I don't think that's a fair argument. There are lots of reasons XRP is not a security. I don't think that's the best argument to put forward, and let me explain why. If it were the case that because mind you, XRP was created, and then the creators of it formed OpenCoin, which became Ripple Labs, which became Ripple, and so then basically gifted it to Ripple, and so that would be an easy loophole for ICOs. If that were something that were to stand, all you have to do if you want to do an ICO and that's a way to get out of things, you know what you could do? Well, before you create a company, you create your cryptocurrency, then you form the company, gift it to yourself, and then you sell it to people. How is that any different from selling a security? Well, it's not. And so that's why I said it's technically, if you're just thinking critically, and this is not me, I'm Mr. XRP Bull, but if you're thinking rationally and you're thinking fairly, that is a point against XRP. So here's where things get a little more interesting, though. Okay, like I said, the state of with just the nature of cryptocurrencies. Something that was once reasonably considered a security could in the future not be. So even if, and we're never going to retroactively go back, and that's why I don't think this matters, but as far as it pertains to XRP, perhaps, just like Jay Clayton said of Ethereum, where he thinks that it probably used to be a security, but he believes it is not now, the same thing may apply for XRP, and I don't think that they're going to have any interest in retroactively regulating this now that it is decentralized. But you could have made a stronger case back when Ripple did have more power over the ledger, just by the number of nodes and all that good stuff, and validators. You could have made a stronger case back then, and but at this point, it's so decentralized, I don't think that you'd have a leg to stand on with that argument, so I just don't think it matters, and frankly, I would argue even further that it would be unfair to retroactively go back and penalize Ripple in any capacity for this, because there was no existing regulation to sufficiently cover this, and I think that it would be an injustice to go back and slap Ripple with any sort of fine or harm them in any way monetarily, just whatever. That would not be okay in my mind. So what I'm trying to get at is it's the technology, the way to classify it can change over time, but once it's decentralized, it's unlikely something is going to go back to being centralized. Certainly Ripple, I don't care, even if they tried now, I don't think that they could somehow just magically gain majority control or super majority control or even a plurality of control over the distributed ledger technology that is the XRP ledger. I just don't see that happening. And as a result, I don't think that XRP is ever going to be deemed a security. Now, if you think further beyond that, even if it were to be deemed a security, understand that XRP is a global phenomenon. It's the world over. So to what degree it would impact Ripple, given that they're headquartered in San Francisco, California, in the United States? I don't know exactly how that would shake out, but XRP would continue to exist, and elsewhere in the world, it wouldn't be a security. It's not like the federal law from the United States government just trumps what the rest of the world wants to do. That's not how this works. And so that will never fly. That will never fly. And so we need to have thoughtful regulation that accounts for the fact that something can transform. It can become something that is centralized and then be decentralized, and you need to have legislation that accounts for that. That doesn't exist. That absolutely does not exist today. And so how do you properly classify XRP without that existing? And that's the conundrum that we're in here. That's how I see it, anyway. So, I'm completely bullish, and, even if, and I'm not making this argument, even if you want to say that Ripple did something wrong by, having a few people create XRP and then it was gifted to Ripple, even if you want to say that, I still say, it's not fair to go back and retroactively punish them. So that's my stance on it. Let me move on to the next piece here. And this is, again, all intertwined, so I'm not really going to be hopping topics here. This is a tweet from Brian Armstrong. He's the CEO of Coinbase, and he wrote, after Trump tweeted out that tweet that I read in the original piece here today, he wrote, "Achievement unlocked. I dreamt about a sitting U.S. president needing to respond to growing cryptocurrency usage years ago. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. We just made it to step 3, y'all." I do like that, and he's got a good point to that. That's the acknowledgement on this level is kind of jaw-dropping, and even if it's in a negative capacity from Donald Trump for whatever reason, if he really believes it, and again, I still think that I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have his head fully wrapped around this. I wouldn't be surprised yet, but if his concern is that it's going to hurt the United States dollar's global reserve currency status. He needs to have a little chit-chat with Jerome Powell, and I got getting something coming up from here. But I want to read just a real short piece of this from Cointelegraph. It's on Trump tweeting about Bitcoin. His achievement unlocked, says Coinbase CEO. Donald Trump saying he is not a fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is huge with a Y for the industry, commentators were suggesting after new tweets on July 12th. In the hours after the United States president delivered his lackluster appraisal of crypto, the Bitcoin price stayed stable, only to then begin growing to hit 1% gains Friday. Negative or not for proponents, the event marked a psychological milestone for Bitcoin, as Trump had previously held off from mentioning it in public. The fact that he felt the need to bash Bitcoin publicly feeds the narrative that it is both independent of global powers and unable to be crushed by them, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong stated, leading the responses. And then I already just read the tweet, so I'm going to skip right past that. Armstrong exemplified the buoyant mood among Bitcoiners. Others likewise thanked Trump for the free publicity, noting a surge in interest documented by Google Trends, while the president being wrong in his opinion also became a talking point on social media. And here's a quote now. Congratulations, Bitcoin community. The President of the United States feels we are worthy of tweet now. Cryptocurrency entrepreneur Simon Dixon added. Bitcoin has outperformed United States dollars by, 23 million percent since it, is that correct? Wow, 23 million percent since it started being priced in USD, right? And so he can think what he wants. But let me move on to what Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has to say about this. And this is a piece from A&B Crypto titled, Boom and Bust, is the chair of the Federal Reserve more influential than Trump on Bitcoin's price? And there's only a part of this that I want to read to you here. We can talk about it. It was a part, I just had it on the screen 1 second ago, if I could scroll back down to where I just had it. So sorry, here, yeah, so this part's titled Powell's Prowess. Trying to make a tongue twister for me. All right. Jerome Powell, chair of the United States Federal Reserve, had more of an effect on Bitcoin's price despite not even mentioning the top cryptocurrency by name. During the aforementioned hearing before Chairwoman Maxine Waters and the Financial Affairs Committee on July 10th, Powell primarily discussed Libra. He stated that Facebook's cryptocurrency raises serious concerns and that it cannot go forward until several questions regarding privacy and security are met. Powell, however, urged lawmakers to not sprint towards regulating the project. Instead, he asked them to adopt a patient and careful approach. And so here's a quote from the Fed chair. He stated, Libra raises serious concerns regarding privacy, money laundering, consumer protection, and financial stability. These are concerns that should be thoroughly and publicly addressed before proceeding. And in everything that I saw from Jerome Powell, it seemed to me that he had the most measured, thoughtful approach. He's simply acknowledging that there are concerns here, there is a need for regulation, and that's an undeniable truth at this point. He didn't go in any extreme direction to the pro or the con. He didn't go negative like Trump did in terms of saying Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are blah, blah, blah. And he also didn't go to the positives saying, hey, it's, which you wouldn't expect him to really, but hey, everything's cool, it's whatever. So as it pertains to Libra here, I think that there's a point to be made, and it's kind of what I was saying just a short bit ago when I was talking on this. Regulation can make sense if you're talking about this being a permissioned coin, at least as it pertains to Facebook. Beyond that, this stuff is going to exist regardless. If it's going to be an actual currency, if that's what it becomes, if it's going to be used as money, even though it'll be a liability, whether it's in the phase of being permissioned or permissionless, if Facebook were to bow out of this and the rest wanted to move forward, they could still make it. And then what are you going to do? Outlaw a currency within the United States that is run by who? Everybody else, a group? Are you also going to outlaw various fiat currencies for no damn reason? Like, what's that even look like? And so when I ask myself questions like that, I'm like, it wouldn't make sense for that to even occur. And so what I think will happen here, assuming Facebook chooses to move forward with this, and it seems like they're quite serious about it, unless there are any additional developments, just based on the information today, I would, if I had to guess, not a high level of certainty, but I suspect that the project will move forward. If I had to just guess right today based on available information, and I think it is going to have to be properly regulated, and we're just not there quite yet. Now, here's what the Fed chairman said about Bitcoin relative to gold, and this is from Cointelegraph.com.
Piece titled, Fed Chairman, No One Uses It. Bitcoin, a speculative asset like gold. And let me read just a little snippet of this here. The chairman of the United States Federal Reserve has said that a globally adopted cryptocurrency system could conceivably remove the need for reserve currencies. Wasn't I just saying this like within the last week? I never heard somebody that high up in government state that, but I've been saying that most recently within the last week in at least one or two of my videos, and I've been saying that for the better half of a year, which is how long I've been running this YouTube channel. It's only been around a little over 6 months now. So yeah, okay, moving on here. So the article continues. Testifying before the Senate Banking Committee on July 11th, Fed Chairman Chair Powell gave his analysis of whether a cryptocurrency system with global prevalence could diminish or even go so far as to remove the need for so-called anchor currencies. With the U.S. dollar de facto the world's dominant reserve currency, Powell acknowledged the possibility of a preeminent cryptocurrency redrawing the current financial landscape, yet he noted that as of yet, this has stopped short of becoming a reality. The Fed chairman said, I think things like that, and he's referencing the obsolescence of today's reserve currencies, are possible, but we really haven't seen widespread adoption. Bitcoin is a good example. Almost no one uses it for payments. It's a speculative store of value like gold. There you go. So Bitcoin is like it's a store of value just like gold. So he's acknowledging that is that. And I would agree that there's no real traction in terms of using a cryptocurrency for daily payment. Part of it is the technology isn't there. Then you have the issue of custodianship, the ease of use with which you can even operate the technology. It's quite a hurdle to even understand. But even once you get over that, you still have a major issue, which is that large swaths of the world are not having trouble with their fiat currencies. And so what problem would it solve to start purchasing things on a daily basis? Even if you solved those other problems I just cited, what problem would it solve? It wouldn't. I have no interest in using a cryptocurrency for my daily payments. To me, it would just be a pain in the butt if I had to do that. That'd be a pain in the rear. I don't want to. If things change down the road, I reserve the right to change my opinion as situations change. But right now, it makes no sense for me to do that. And that's the same case for many people the world over. So people that are going to adopt this, they'd have to be in kind of dire straits. They would have to be at a point where their fiat currency in whatever given country they're in is even less trustworthy, and it would have to be more volatile, and then you'd still have to. There'd still have to be a transition point. So, look, I think it can happen organically. I'm not ruling that out, and you'd have to be super closed-minded to think that it could never happen. But even if it does, if it's not solving a major problem, a major point of friction, then I don't see it just taking over the world. And that's another point that I think Bitcoin maximalists at large are missing. It's not just going to be Bitcoin and that's all everybody uses to pay for everything. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Not like that. And plus on top of that, I'm not going to get into it, but there are other reasons that multiple cryptocurrencies are going to have long-term staying power. I've talked about that before as well. But anyway, here's the cool thing, though. So you've got the Fed chairman saying it's a speculative store of value like gold. That is cool stuff. All right, now let's get on to some of the fun tweets here. This is from Mark Yusko, and I teased this a little bit earlier in the video. I've got like 4 or 5 tweets from him. I'm going to read through them real quick, and these are awesome. I could tell that he was feeling spicy today. He was a little fired up. I like this. Right? Although I guess, what is it? So technically this is late yesterday. But anyway, yesterday evening. But he tweeted this out, #Dear POTUS. May I infer from your recent Bitcoin tweet that you finally figured out how irresponsible spending, ill-advised tax cuts for your rich donors, and huge deficits lead to a debt burden that can only be solved by completely debasing the United States dollar, and sound money is a threat. Yeah, that's pretty strongly worded, although if you're talking about ill-advised tax cuts for rich donors, I mean, look, I'm not going to get into politics here. I will just say this. Now, oh gosh, how am I tiptoeing around this? Now I don't know how to say what I want to say because I don't want to talk politics. I'll just say this. The way in which the world operates, monetary policy at large, it is not created. It's not in its current state, and it is not the fault of President Trump. and by and large, not even Obama. It exists now. You can, if you want to blame either or both of them for it persisting, that's fine if you want to do that. But this type of system has persisted for a long time. How long have we been growing the massive? What is the debt now? What is the United States debt? Like 22 trillion or something like that? It's pointless to even count at this point. Like, that has been going on for decades at this point. It's been accumulating and it's getting worse. And there's all sorts of monetary policy problems anyway. But regardless, Mark Yusko's point is not lost on me, despite that. His next tweet here. Dear POTUS, you state that unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. Do you mean to contend that unlawful behavior and drug trading didn't occur before 2009 when cryptocurrencies were invented? And then he's got the emoji, whatever you call that one, the thinking face. There we go. Thank you. That's what it's called. The thinking face. Next tweet from him. Dear POTUS, you say Bitcoin's value is based on air. Could you answer a few questions for me? Can I surrender my USD for government... Can I surrender my United States dollars to government for gold or silver? Can I surrender my United States dollars to government for share of tax revenue? Who sets value of United States dollar? Hasn't United States dollar lost 95% of purchasing power since 1913? And you know what's funny? I'll just make a point. I've been meaning to say this for a while. It's not a major point, but people talk about currencies being backed, and if they're not backed by something, then they don't have value. And that's why they said that the reason that the United States dollar in the past used to have real value, gold bugs like Peter Schiff would say, it's because it's backed by gold. But take that one layer further. What is gold backed by? Nothing, except for consumer confidence. So it always goes back to that. Otherwise you get in this infinite regression where there is nothing backing it, or there is. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's an infinite regression if you don't believe this. And so there's always going to be that last layer where it's not backed by anything other than the confidence of people in general in the marketplace. And that's what's happening with cryptocurrencies at large. They don't have to be backed by fiat currencies, which are backed by nothing. It doesn't make sense. Just let cryptocurrencies be backed by the market, and in my book, that's just fine. Next tweet. Dear POTUS, quick history lesson. For most of mankind's existence, there was no global reserve currency. For past 600 years, the GRC, Global Reserve Currency, has changed many times from Portugal, Spain, Netherlands, France, UK, US. The reign of USD and GRC will end. And so obviously he sees Bitcoin. I think for him it is Bitcoin becoming a global reserve currency. And I can see something like that happening. I can see some. Who knows if there would be one winner in that capacity, one utilized for that. I just see a world where there's going to be multiple cryptocurrencies with staying power, so we'll just have to see. Next tweet from him. This is the last one from him. And he writes translations. This must be in reference to the previous one. I don't understand Bitcoin and crypto. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not in reference to the last one. He's translating what Trump tweeted out as far as I'm not a fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. He's translating Trump's tweet. And it's kind of funny. He translated it to, I don't understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but my largest donors tell me it reduces amount of money they can give me because their profits are vanishing into thin air as central bankers destroy value of regulated fiat currencies that dominate illegal drug trade. Zing! All right. Then you got Anthony Pompliano here, and he was on an interview, but here's the one quote that Squawkbox put out, and this is the one I wanted to share with you. Anthony Pompliano, and this is Mark's business partner, stated, if you said 10.5 years ago the President of the United States is going to be tweeting about magic internet money, we would have never envisioned that day, says Anthony Pompliano. I think that speaks for itself, and I enjoyed that tweet, so I thought I'd share it with you. Rand Nooner now, he's the host of Crypto Trader, CNBC show, and he tweeted this out. You have to appreciate how resilient the Bitcoin price was to Trump's comments. He is arguably the most powerful person in the world today, and he did issue a public statement slamming Bitcoin, yet the price moved up. We are really starting to see the benefits of Bitcoin. And then you've got Nouriel Roubini here. Oh my God, this guy. He's a major anti-crypto, major anti-Bitcoin, and so on and so forth. He tweeted this out. And this is in response to Trump's tweet about not being a fan of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Nouriel tweeted, first time I agree with Trump. No country, not even USA, skeptical of excessive regulations, will allow the Wild West scams of unregulated crypto with no AML, KYC, so that's anti-money laundering and know your customer regulations, being a bank or money servicer with no bank license or regulations. Get used to it, you crypto fools / scammers. Start to comply or disappear. Comply to what? That's what I'm saying, and this is why this sounds disingenuous to me. You have to know this, Nuriel. There is not sufficient regulation on this asset class. It's completely nonsense. It's bonkers to have that point of view, as if everybody participating in this particular asset class is being irresponsible or evil scammers and fools. That's just a bunch of hogwash in my mind. Justin Sun, he's he runs Tron, and you've heard this story, I'm sure. I've talked about it a few times on this channel, where he's going to be having a lunch with none other than Warren Buffett on July 25th. He donated something like $4.5 million to a charity that Buffett runs, and so one of the things you get with that is you get a lunch with Buffett, which is hilarious because Buffett's anti-Bitcoin and Justin Sun is obviously very pro-crypto in general. And so anyway, he tweeted this in response to Donald Trump's tweet being anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto, and he stated, "Mr. President, you are misled by fake news. Bitcoin and blockchain happens to be the best chance for the United States. I'd love to invite you to have lunch with crypto leaders along with Warren Buffett on July 25th. I guarantee you after this lunch, nobody will know crypto more than you." That's a good point. And so, I mean, he's not going to take him up on it, but I found that comical anyway, and Justin knows that. But still, on to a slightly different topic, and then I'm going to wrap up the video here. Just got two other quick things for you. Fidelity Digital Assets is hiring 10 more blockchain and trading experts. I just want to highlight this because it has to do with the development of the asset class as a whole here. And Fidelity's major, and look, a lot of money is going to be poured into the space as Fidelity and other major names come into crypto. So check this out. Fidelity Digital Assets, the crypto-focused branch of the major asset manager, is looking to boost its team with the addition of 10 new blockchain professionals. Posted within the last 2 days, the new positions include a range of leadership roles, including a vice president, director, and leading software engineer, as well as non-senior positions like a blockchain software engineer, product designer, and others. Some of those jobs, including the vice president and an engineer, have been waiting to be filled since May, but were reposted. However, Fidelity has apparently expanded its hiring plans since then. So you got major names like this, nothing but bullish on crypto, obviously. And so the reason I wanted to bring this up is if you're still freaking out about price, and I'll probably talk about this in a video, possibly later today. In my mind, not financial advice, everything's A-okay. Crypto is here to stay. It's not going away. It's just going to be properly regulated. Next topic here. This is the last thing I'm going to cover in this particular video here, and this is from Forbes, titled, "Ballers in Bitcoin, Miami Dolphins set to accept cryptocurrencies for payments." Professional sports franchises, leagues, and athletes are no strangers to cryptocurrencies. As early as 2014, when the Sacramento Kings became the first professional sports franchise to accept Bitcoin, talk of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and blockchains like Ethereum might revolutionize sports, have fueled public discourse. Georgia Tech began accepting Bitcoin for its stadium concession sales in 2014. Marshawn Lynch, a former Seattle Hawks running back and Super Bowl, whatever that number is, champion, invested in a blockchain company in 2015. His teammate, Richard Sherman, started accepting Bitcoin for merchandise on his website as early as 2014. Despite the early enthusiasm, many cryptocurrency projects in the professional sports payment space have been limited or short-lived. The Litecoin Foundation, in partnership with the Miami Dolphins, announced today that it would begin accepting both Bitcoin and Litecoin for payments beginning in the 2019-2020 NFL season. And I just found that fascinating enough to share with you. It still sounds silly to me to use such a volatile currency for the sake of payment, but hey, apparently you can do it. I don't really have any incentive to because my United States dollars are perfectly functional. I'm more interested in XRP as a bridge currency because there's some real utility outside of using cryptocurrencies as a peer-to-peer cashless system without a central authority. So that's what I'm looking into. That's what I like anyway. What do you think? Feel free to comment below. That's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Thanks so much for watching.